Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thanks so much for joining me and welcome to my Deep Purple CD collection run through. So the band formed in 1968 and has released a total of 23 studio albums, which is a lot for most bands, but I've got 55 CDs from Deep Purple in my collection. Certainly don't have it all, but I have a lot of cool stuff here. And I'm going to go through it all with you guys in just a bit. But before we start, if you're new to my channel and haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by turning on notifications, you'll never miss an episode and stay up to date on really cool things like this with a Deep Purple CD collection run through. All 55 things that I have in my collection. So we're going to dive right in. I like to try and do it chronologically. It doesn't always fall when the album actually came out, but I like to go by year in terms of like if it's a live album, I fit it in where it was recorded. Not going to have everything right, but I'm going to try. So we're going to kick off with Shades of Deep Purple. This was the Mark I lineup where we've got Rod Evans, Nick Semper in the lineup before Ian Gillan joins the band, or Roger Glover doing Hush and other great stuff on here. So those guys make 3 albums together. Book of Taliesin is the second one. And the third one, which is simply a self-titled release, I actually like this one best out of all of them. They start to get into that more progressive field on this one here. Now, what's kind of strange is the first album and thing that they do with Ian Gillan is actually the Gemini Suite, a live recording that's for band and orchestra as opposed to doing, say, a studio album or something like that. So that's our first thing that we get with Gillan. But the first proper studio album is the classic In Rock. This one here's got all the great tracks that are on it. I personally love the song Bloodsucker off of here. That was later re-recorded for Abandon. I'll mention it, I guess, again when I get to that. But love this album. A lot of people think that that's their best album. Personal favorite of mine is this one, which is Fireball. Actually, I should pull it out so you can see it. This is a 25 anniversary version of it where there was different remixes. It came out in 1996, I think. Roger Glover did some remixes, but that's the sleeve that you're seeing. But there you go. That is the actual, and I like this one here a lot. Now, this is where I mentioned, like, this came out, I think, in 2015. But it was recorded in 1971. It's only got 4 tracks on it, but you know Deep Purple, man, they could jam. So we get Speed King, Strange Kind of Woman, Child in Time, and Mandrake Root, which was really interesting for them to be performing. So some cool, officially released, but sort of, official bootlegs coming out from the band. And then we get the all-time classic Machine Head. And so this one here, another one, I think was the 25th anniversary, released around the same time, having different mixes on it. Roger Glover got into doing that, which I thought was a pretty cool thing. And then I've got the 2012 remastered version of the album itself, and this one here coming with a Quadio mix as well. And they've since done it again, celebrating its 50th anniversary, so that version is out there. I chose not to pick it up, although I would like to get that Steven Wilson remix that's on it, and I'm hoping that they eventually release that separately. I bought this when it was a separate item. Has a 2012 mix of a live concert from 1972. So kind of like those official bootleg things, but they put that out as a standalone release. And then we get the all-time classic live album, Made in Japan. This one here just celebrating, I think it was just coming out, celebrating its 50th anniversary, even though it's off by a few years. But getting the Steven Wilson treatment. All 3 of the shows that the tracks were pulled from came out as part of that box set. But again, I just didn't feel I needed all that. I've got this one here, so I'm happy with that for the time being at least. Although I'm on the fence, I may pick up that box either way. Next album, Who Do We Think We Are? And again, this one is an anniversary one, so there's a bunch of bonus tracks on this one here. Woman from Tokyo being on this. This album never had the power to me that the previous album, Machine Head, has. It's always kind of been an oddity in their catalog, if you ask me at least. And I'm going to have a series of collections and things throughout this. So this being the first one, we rock. Let me just even try and read this. We rock, when we roll, we roll. When we rock, and when we roll, we roll. There you go. That's the title of this. Only 8 cuts on it, but this was one of the first best ofs. So it goes all the way back to their beginning, and it covers through Machine Head and stuff like that. Now, we're going to move into the Mark III lineup, having David Coverdale join for the album Burn. And again, another anniversary edition of this, having a bunch of bonus tracks on it. We've got 2004 remixes included on here, getting to hear updated versions. I kind of hope they go back and do full remix albums, because this would only select certain tracks to do, and it was cool at the time, but now in the day and age of entire remix albums, I hope some of these get that treatment. So I've got Stormbringer as well, and this one here is a 2-disc set, so you get those remixes, but then you also get the quad mix in stereo on here. Last one with Richie Blackmore for a while. We get this live album here from 1975 that's got Blackmore, again part of the official bootleg series that they were doing. It's got 8 tracks on it, covers a lot of great stuff from Burn and Stormbringer, and of course going back and doing their version of Smoke on the Water and Space Trucking and whatnot. Now we're moving on to the Mark IV lineup, because in comes Tommy Bolin on lead guitar, taking over for Blackmore. This one here being a 2 CD reissue, and this had been a very hard one to get. At one point I had a box set that had 3 albums that had been out of print for a long time, including Who Do We Think We Are, this album, and I think Stormbringer was in it, because those were hard to come by. But finally, this album, Come Taste the Band, comes out. We get the original album remastered and a 2010 remix of the album in full, and it's got a different track sequence to it, so that was a cool thing. And then from that era, because that's the only album that Tommy Bolin did, it was great to see that the band officially releasing on Purple Records some other things like Days May Come and Go, which were rehearsal sessions from that time period, including some jams and things of that nature. And that went over so well, they did a part 2 to the album as well. And these are official releases on Purple Records. Purple Records has been around since the mid-70s. The band was releasing stuff on their own imprint, and it's continued to this day. And then there's this thing here, this time around, live recording that had come out in video format, getting its release here. And this came with a whole bunch of little special things, some coasters that were part of this, tickets from it. This all, of course, replica stuff, poster, and there's the album itself. But very cool to have the little promo stuff that came along with it in this kind of mini box set, if you will. And then unfortunately the band breaks up at that point, but we get the Mark II lineup reuniting for Perfect Strangers. This album here was 1984, and it was a huge return for the band, really re-establishing them. I think it's one of the main reasons that the band is as popular today, is that they've had several of these big major reunions throughout their career that kind of re-established the band, that being one of them. There's also this that came out years later, Perfect Strangers Live. It's a 2 CD set, and it's got a DVD in here. That's why it's got this weird back on it, because it was a slimline that they were trying to figure out ways to shove 3 discs inside these things. Never really catching on. Number of bands tried it. Rolling Stones, Deep Purple. I haven't seen too much of it, and I'm glad, because those, when those break, that's it. And unfortunately, jewel cases do break. All right, they followed it up with House of Blue Light, which had some good tracks on it. Bad Attitude, The Unwritten Law, Call of the Wild, I think, was a single off of it. A little more poppy than previous album, but a good album nonetheless. And they recorded a live concert called Nobody's Perfect. 11 tracks on that, including Hush, their version of it. They released that as a single at the time, and it was great to hear Ian Gillan singing that. We got a compilation of best of from that era from the 1980s. So those 2 studio albums and the 1 live album making up a nice little collection. But unfortunately, that doesn't last. So I think we are now on the Mark V lineup, where we have Joe Lynn Turner coming in. And essentially, this is kind of like a rainbow. It's Ritchie Blackmore, it's Joe Lynn Turner. Some of the other guys in purple were part of it, like Roger Glover was producing for the band and stuff like that. It's a great album, but it was kind of a little like reforming Rainbow Through the Back Door, which is a little bit of like what was happening with Whitesnake for a while, almost reforming that version of Deep Purple through the back door, early on at least. But then we get another Mark II reunion in The Battle Rages On. And I absolutely love this album. Unfortunately, I think it kind of bombed pretty hard at the time. But this album, for me at least, is where it's at. I've always loved it. The title track alone is an amazing song that they did. But I always like the song Enya, Time to Kill, A Twist in the Tail, Solitaire. So many great ones on there that are just prime Ritchie Blackmore stuff. And we get a collection from that era as well that has the Joe Lynn Turner era and that Ritchie Blackmore reunion era on it. 11 tracks with that. And this again comes out years later, but we get 2 concerts from 1993, 4 CDs in this box set, like a little kind of mini clamshell style thing like that with a cool booklet that's part of it. Wasn't very much money, but they started putting some of these things out. They've sort of tested the waters with various official bootleg releases over the years. We did get an official release of Come Hell or High Water, though this had came out already after Ritchie Blackmore had left. In fact, I think this is the concert that they break up on. If I remember the story right, that there was a whole big issue with this and didn't get released, got delayed, and then it ultimately got put out anyways years later. But then we're on, and again, I've probably lost count already. I think we're on the Mark VI lineup at this point because we have Steve Morse come in on guitar, taking over for Blackmore. And in my opinion, the best of the long-term guitar players. I love this lineup of the group. Perpendicular. This comes out in 96. Some great stuff on this album as well. Ted the Mechanic is on here. Loosen My Strings I really like. Cascades. Let's see, and then we've got a live album, and these were cool. These at the time were very hard to come by. This is a European-only release, live at the Olympia, 96, 2 CD set with Steve Morse. And at that time, not having had much material by him, I appreciated getting those kind of live releases in order to flesh out and hear what it was or how it is that he would interpret the Blackmore material. All right, in 1998, or sorry, no, it's 98, Abandon comes out. This is the one where the last track on here, they re-record Bloodsucker from In Rock. And I remember at the time I didn't know that that was from In Rock, but when I found that out and I went back, I bought that album and I fell in love with that album. And I kind of realized that I liked all the different eras of the band, not just the current stuff, which is really where I was in the 90s with a lot of these groups, was just at the current stuff. I had not gone back, but this is a good album too. And then we get the band celebrating their 30th anniversary, 68 to 1998. They put out a 4 CD box set with a bunch of rarities on it. This one being kind of a unique way of doing things. You don't see many of these that are like this, that are the long style. I see one of the CDs has popped out there. Booklets in here, slides out. So this is a very cool thing. Obviously, totally obsolete at this point. We're very close to it being 30 years on from this, 3 more years. Beyond that, we got a 2 CD special 30th anniversary collection, and they were using a bunch of those remixes from the 25th anniversary editions of the album. So I found this to be very cool. And years later, I found out there was a single CD edition, and I much prefer single CD edition compilations. So I bought this one as I prefer this in my collection now, but got this. That was what I bought at the time. We also get Abandoned or Total Abandoned from 1999, so a live concert on that tour, 2 CD set recorded in Australia. And it's just kind of become a thing where they do a lot of live recordings to follow up the tours. Here in the US, we finally got an official Best of Deep Purple covering the whole of their career, at least on the Warner Brothers years. So we've got the original era of the band. Songs like Hush and Kentucky Woman are included. And then we get the Smoke on the Water and all of that sort of stuff. But we also get Burn, we get Stormbringer, we get stuff from Perfect Strangers. So it goes for a nice, sort of wide swath of time, but it does skip over a lot on here. 15 tracks total, but it was great to get. There's far better collections that have been released. I'm going to show you some of those in a minute here. They record another concert with the London Symphony Orchestra. This was really popular at the time. I think this is 2000. All bands were doing it. Metallica did their S&M show, Symphony and Metallica, and it just made all of it so popular. So everybody was out doing it. And Deep Purple, one of the first bands to ever do it back in the late 60s, very early 70s, rightfully so, should be doing it. Live at Rotterdam, so this one here recorded with Symphony, but a live show, a different recording of that. I like this album. Not a lot of people like it. In 2003, we get Bananas. And I believe this is the first one without John Lord, making it the Mark 7 lineup. And again, I think I'm keeping it all straight at this point. Also, I don't count the Joe Satriani in the band as one of the eras because he never joined. But if you go on like Wikipedia, it's actually listed as one of the Mark lineups. So I'm not counting that. So if you think I'm off because of that, I'm not. Bananas, great album though. Under the radar, people didn't like its album cover. I actually thought it was really cool and dug it, but just a really good album. The band would then come back with Rapture from the Deep, or Of the Deep, sorry. This is the regular album version of it. I would later find this special edition 2 CD edition of the album with a whole second disc of bonus material on here. Clearly quite absurd, a new version, things I've never said, the well-dressed guitar, a studio version because the live version absolutely rocks, and 4 live tracks on this, and you can see it's signed there. So it's very cool to get that, and now they've got a remix version that's getting ready to come out too. I'll be buying that, putting that in my collection as well. There was a tribute album that came out, and this had Carlos Santana, it had Chickenfoot with Joe Satriani and Sammy Hagar. We get Glenn Hughes, Chad Smith, Black Label Society, Iron Maiden, Metallica. They do songs on here. So this was a very cool thing that came out at the time through Classic Rock Magazine. As far as I know, is the only way to get it. And so I have that and keep that within my Deep Purple collection too. From the Setting Sun, Live at Wacken, 2 CD, DVD show that they put out. I think this is 2015. So not really supporting an album at this point. Now to celebrate, I guess this would be their 40th anniversary. So they do Fire in the Sky. This is, or no, would this be 50? 2018? Yeah, this would be, so it's coming out in 2017, but basically celebrating a 50th anniversary from 68 to 2017, Fire in the Sky. So a 3-disc, totally comprehensive collection of the band versus my favorite when it's a single disc. And this does everything from Hush all the way up to their latest hit at the time, Hell to Pay, a radio edit. So you really do get all the different eras of the band on here. And I love that. This is the compilation to get if you're looking for something. Now, the band suddenly had a resurgence starting with this album, Now What, which came out in 2013. And for the last decade, these guys have been doing an absolutely amazing job. That album, huge standout in my opinion. The Now What live tapes, a 2 CD thing here that's got live and in the studio. some alternate editions, very cool stuff. Japanese only 2 CD set. The band then puts out Infinite, and again, this one here from 2017, just continuing on more of a straight ahead rock album. Whereas this one had a very progressive feel and the keyboards were way out front, almost totally overshadowing Steve Morse. But this one here kind of comes back to more of a rock era, even doing a cover of the Doors song Roadhouse Blues. And I picked up a CD single from it at the time because when this came out, this had Paradise Bar, a non-album track, Uncommon Man, an instrumental version, and Hip Boots, a rehearsal edition. So it had some unreleased stuff and made it worthwhile to pick that up as I was gearing up for the album release. And then we get the Infinite live recordings, 2 CD collection of live tracks, again, a Japanese only release. And what I think is absolutely one of their best albums of their entire career, Whoosh. And this was intended to be their final album. They announced a farewell tour. They went out on the road. The last song on here and the address before the bonus track, because there is a bonus track, Dancing in My Sleep. But the last track and the address is the first song on the first album. So they re-recorded that to end all things. And I thought that was a very cool thing. But what happens? The pandemic, and it messes everything up. And the band starts thinking, maybe we're not done. Let's see what else we can do. Let's run back into the studio, and they make a covers album. And I gotta say, I don't particularly care for this. It didn't really have that Deep Purple sound the way that I wanted it to. Only a few of the tracks actually had them in that vein. Otherwise, they're kind of almost straight covers, if you ask me. And we kind of thought that was it. And Steve Morse, unfortunately, chooses to step down to take care of his wife, an absolute admirable thing as she goes through the final stages of cancer. And she did pass away. And certainly my condolences go out to Steve for that. Unfortunately, he chose not to come back. Simon McBride is announced. We have Mark 8, and they put out this absolutely fantastic album called Equals One in 2024. One of the best albums of the year, and I don't know how they did it, but they have managed to stay on par with all the stuff that Steve Morse has done, just doing it as good. I was really thinking there was no way they could live up to that killer era of the band, but they do with this album. I love this. And so there you go. I just ran through 55 Deep Purple albums or things that I've got. I did count this simply as one item, even though there's 4 discs in there, and the box set, which had 4 CDs. This one, I just counted as one thing. So I guess if I really got down to it, I could have even more. But 55 items. I hope you enjoyed this. Maybe you saw something in this that you didn't know that the band had done, like those couple Japanese releases that they recently did. I'm always finding stuff. There's so much stuff out there. Like I said, I totally don't have it all. There's a ton more live albums that have officially been released, and other stuff that's out there to certainly go out and find. But that's my 55 CD Deep Purple collection run through. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you guys real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.